What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about identity. I'm going to be covering this post in the Neville subreddit because I think that it really illustrates this point that teachers like Neville Goddard talk about when they talk about embodying the state. They talk about acting as if. And I'm going to read the post. We're going to talk about it, and let's begin. So Neville once said, "To walk as though you were what you want to be is to take your desire out of the imaginary world." This sentence had people confused, and people seem to think to stay in the wish fulfilled and maintain belief throughout the day, the moment you drop out of it for any reason, it's going to affect your end result. And that is not true. Neville had a specific way of talking, and he often quoted the Bible as well, so it's no wonder his statements had that tone as well. It doesn't mean that he meant to say that you need to stay in that state forcefully throughout the day. We've talked about this in a recent video. It's like that idea of persisting, and like it tends, language is just symbology to represent ideas and to represent the real truth of what's going on. Language points us in the direction, and it is very powerful because it is how we conjure imagery. It is how we communicate, and it is powerful. The thing is that it's a tool, and we're using it as a tool. And if we misrepresent, in certain languages, they have different words for different things. And so sometimes ideas can get misconstrued. So the point being is that we're going to read the rest of the post, and I'll touch on this later, but the idea of persisting in the state is not this thing that you have to do. If the word persist, or if the word, if the language that you're using cultivates that inner tension that's like, oh, it has to be like this, which I think a lot of people, especially people that follow Neville Goddard, people that follow Abraham Hicks, people that speak in these very certain terms, it leaves us open to this type of thinking, this all or nothing, black and white thinking. We've talked about it many times, but we're going to continue here. So if that was the case, he wouldn't have asked people to write, "I will not climb a ladder," on a piece of paper and put it in their wallet to remind them throughout the day, referring to the ladder experiment. What that sentence means is to have faith in the 4D reality, to cultivate an inner knowing that you imagine consistently is what you imagine consistently is what's going to show up in the 3D. So for a person who keeps reminding themselves of this truth, it's easy to navigate the challenges and obstacles that the outer world throws at them, because they know that sooner or later, what they want will come. It simply must come after all. Because whatever your inner man has experienced in your imagination, you, the outer man, has no choice but to experience it as well. This belief comes through the persistent application of the law, i.e. taking your assumption into sleep after night. Doing so slowly creates a belief in the subconscious that what you used to desire is not a desire anymore. It is now a fact in your life. Once you reach that point, you take your desire out of the imaginary world, as Neville says in that quote. It's at this point that it begins to materialize. So after all the fretting and constant worrying, you embody a calmer state of mind. The fretting and the worrying disappears. You begin transitioning from the consciousness of desiring to the consciousness of having it already. That is what we're talking about when you're talking about giving it to yourself in the 4D. You've viscerally had this experience. You have that feeling of satisfaction and relief that you've gotten this thing. You've given it to yourself in the 4D. And then you can go throughout your day without needing the 3D to reflect it. You don't have that craving, needing, desire anymore, because it's like, Neville Goddess, Maggie Murphy, has a good example of this. It's like, say that you've been wanting chocolate cake and you've been thinking about it, you've been wanting it, and for whatever reason, you haven't been able to get this slice of chocolate cake. Maybe the store is out of it, or the store is shut down, or whatever reason, you can't get it. Finally, you get the chocolate cake and you have it, and you eat it, and you give it to yourself. You enjoy the satisfaction of actually eating it. The same type of satisfaction you want to give it to yourself in your mind, in your mind's eye. Because once you have that feeling, you notice that after the second day, the cake still tastes really good. The third day, you're like, oh yeah, this is good. But by the fourth day, by the fifth day, by the sixth day, you're kind of like, yeah, it's good, but now I want something else, right? That's the type of vibe that you're going for. You really want that type of feeling of relief, of satisfaction that you have had that what you wanted. You have given yourself this treat, whatever it might be. The chocolate cake is a good example because we can all viscerally experience what that's like. We've all had something like that before where we've wanted something, we've been craving some type of food like that. We finally get it, but if we keep eating the same food every single day for weeks, we're not going to be craving that food anymore, right? You want to get to that same level of detachment after giving it to yourself in the 4D. So there's no need of trying to create that feeling during the day. You don't need to force yourself to feel as if you have it when you're doing the dishes or when you're at the way to the office or preparing your dinner. If it's coming, then do not force it, because that's what Neville meant. Yeah, I don't know if English is this first person's language, because some of these sentences really don't flow in a way that makes perfect sense. But during these moments, simply practice gratitude for the things you have in your life right now. Instead of trying to change the 3D while awake, because that's only going to add more friction, try to be grateful for the things that are already good in your current reality. And there's so many different ways we can do this. Gratitude is one way. Another way is like using humor. We've been talking about lately on the channel. When you start making jokes about things and complaining about how good things are, or complaining about these like things happening in your reality, which are actually what you've wanted anyways. And I've been getting these comments, like somebody recently made a comment that was like, I had this crush on this guy that worked in a different part of the building. So I was complaining about, like they're going to move me into this section of the building. And lo and behold, what section did they move them to? I think it was her. Did they move her to? After like 2 weeks, something happened, some bridge of incidents, some restructuring of the hiring of the company and the employees, and she gets moved in exactly the section that she was complaining about getting moved to. So there's so many different techniques at our disposal, and I go through all of them in my book, which is available in the description. But when you begin to do these techniques, some people are like, oh, you don't need to do the techniques. The techniques are like training wheels. Like anything that you're learning, you're going to want to employ techniques. Even the people that leave these threads online that are like, techniques don't matter, they'll describe a success story in which they used a technique, even if all they're doing is embodying the state, which for them was going into some sort of visualization process, or it was falling asleep, state akin to sleep, or they were using a robotic affirming. They were just talking to themselves about this. But it's like it's like being like, oh yeah, I really want to get good at tennis, but just be good at tennis. Don't learn the form. Don't learn how to stand. Don't learn how to grip your racket. Don't learn like how to make contact with the ball. Don't learn, it's just like, okay, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. You have to do the techniques so that you learn how to do this. Because once you begin to do it and have success, then you can rely on those techniques. Then you can get more into that space where you don't have to necessarily do, this technique or that technique. Or you find out what works for you, or you can just simply enter the state like these people talk about. Like I get what they're trying to say, but the thing is, with those of us, and even those of us that are successful with this, employing techniques can be incredibly beneficial, and it's like going back to the basics, the fundamentals. Even if you're good at tennis, you're still going to want to drill the techniques, drill the fundamentals. That's like Kobe Bryant, like all these people, they talk about that because it's so important. So in any case, trying to change the 3D while awake, because that's only going to add more friction. Instead of trying to do that, try to be grateful. See the things that are already good. Doing this will quickly get you out of the anxious state and put you into the state of abundance without even trying too much. Then at night, go meet your lover, that is your desire. Be one with it in your imagination and forget the rest. The how, the when, the where, that's not your job. Your job is simply to experience having it and leave the rest to the hands of imagination. It's best to know, it knows best how to materialize your desire in the fastest way possible. Again, this type of, I get what this person's saying here, but I think that this type of flowery, vague language that is similar to the language that Neville uses isn't helpful, especially to those of us that are more logical and we just want a step-by-step method. What is the actual way to do this? Instead of like, oh, your imagination knows the rest. It's like, okay, well, what is actually going to help us get to that outcome? One thing you can do is to, before you go to sleep, be like, okay, subconscious mind, I'm looking for an answer to resolve this thing. Let's say that you're working in your business, right? And you want to know, what is the best way that I can get more customers to my business? Come up with 10 ways that resonate with me, that are the easiest, most frictionless ways possible. Like, it's almost like you're typing in this prompt to ChatGPT, and you can even use ChatGPT too if you want. But it's like you're instructing it so that your subconscious has something to work on. It's the same way like with the RAS. I talk about this in my book. I talked about this many times. When you ask the right questions, the subconscious will then begin to work in your favor. And again, that goes back to why we're using these techniques, guys. You ask these, how can I make this work for me? How is this working to my advantage? What are the ways that I can grow my business? What are the most effective ways that I can solve this problem? Subconscious mind, go to work for me and figure and give me these answers to these, give me the solutions to these questions that I'm asking. You're putting in these requests. If you don't do it, if you don't actually ask the questions, if you're just relying on, like the universe, like, or whatever this person's saying, like, be one with it in your imagination. It's like, what does that even really mean? Anyways, as you guys can see, I'm a little bit, I like all this stuff and I do like Neville Goddard, but I think that if you really want results, the type of, these types of vague things, do you want vague business advice? Do you want, when you go to somebody that's, and you want to lose weight, for example, or you want to gain muscle in the gym, do you want like some vague advice that's like, believe that you will, lose the weight and like trust in your mind's vision of lose, or do you want like a step-by-step, okay, learn progressive overload, do these weights, do these exercises in the gym, make sure that you're eating this amount of protein. Like I'm the second. I want the exact step-by-step blueprint to get me this result. I don't want some vague thing that's like, what is this, I want somebody to just give me the way, the process to do this, to get the result. I don't want some weird, just fluff, really. Anyways, guys, I guess just expressing a little bit of frustration with some of these posts and some of these things, because I think these people have their heart in the right place, but I do think that being specific and it's all a paradox at the same time too, right? Because sometimes it does help to be more vague. Sometimes it helps to be like, yeah, things are getting better and better. If your mind is giving you resistance towards a certain thing, it's all context dependent. But if you really want like to learn the specific ways in which you can suggest yourself, apply this power of suggestion, apply these the same way that like Neville is using the knot technique, right? There's a reason that this works psychologically. And people use this in hypnotherapy. People use this in CBT. People use this in NLP to generate change for people. People use these in a therapeutic context to generate change for their clients. But they use a specific process and they know what's going on psychologically. They don't just say, oh yeah, just like, I don't know, like live in the end. It's because the thing is like, before you can get there, before you can achieve a level of mastery where you're on the tennis court and you're just like, you're just winning. You just have that confidence that you're just going to hit that winning serve, right? You need to do the basics first. You need to get to that point. So that's what I, my goal is on this channel. That's also my goal with this book, is really giving you guys the techniques, empowering you to use these psychological principles to your advantage so that you begin to rewrite the way that you're talking to yourself. You begin to rewrite the way that your story, the way the stories that you're telling yourself, the internal dialogue that's going on, because essentially that is what is writing and programming your reality. It's like you're getting rid of this old operating system that's outdated, it's got bugs, it's got malware, it's got viruses on it, and you're installing a brand new operating system on this. You got a brand new MacBook or whatever, you got your iOS is like updating, and all those bugs, that buggy programming is going to be gone, because now you've installed this brand new software that's programmed to run fast, it's programmed to run smooth, it's programmed to run efficiently, because you've programmed it correctly by speaking to yourself in the right way, by asking yourself the right questions, by reframing, by using presuppositions, by using all the techniques that I talk about in this book, all the techniques that I talk about on my channel. There is a way to do this. It doesn't have to be vague and just amorphous, like this nebulous blob. You can actually break it down, understand the psychological principles that are going on, and use them to your advantage. Anyways, guys, much love as always. Drop this video with a like if you found this helpful. Would love to know your thoughts down below. Hit me with a subscribe if you've not done so already, and I will see you guys in the next one.